Oh my God, I've been on and off like 10 times. I am so sorry, everyone.
Oh,
My
that's all
apologies.
right.
Oh, yeah.
So now you're a co-host. You may share.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for being so awesome. Um, let's see if we can get this going. So I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
great.
You have the floor.
So here we go. I was born in February. I am an Aquarius. I'm going to be talking about hydropower, just like Jansel and Kaylee. I'm so sorry. I hope this doesn't bore you guys. But I'm going to be talking about sextupling Buncombe County's hydropower, multiplying it by 6. So I'm thinking that we're really dedicated to renewable energy, and we've got a lot of bodies of water, as we've talked about, a lot of tributaries, lakes, and water tanks. And because of our location, why don't we fight to increase our hydroelectricity by 6-fold? Obviously, we've talked a lot about this. So currently, hydropower represents only, despite all these dams and stuff, 1% of our electricity. So it's very small. In use today, Kevin, you can correct me later, but this is what I got from the Energy Information Agency. We've got a 4-megawatt dam up in the northwest of the county, and then we've got a 2.4 megawatt dam at the sewerage district, which I've taken a tour of. We've also got some nearby ones just north of the county at Ivy River, and Lake Lure apparently has a 3.6 one. So let's talk about some of our assets. We've got some amazing rivers that just intersect, bisect, whatever, our county, and some great tributaries. Also on this map, you're going to notice a bunch of light blue dots. Those are all water tanks, which are holding water at high levels that is released normally down to the populations at a lower level. You'll also notice the North Fork Reservoir to the right, sort of the upper right of the screen, and that's holding a lot of water back. It's dammed. Well, anyways, what we're using in our county is about 3 million megawatt hours every year. That's a huge amount. So if we're ignoring the natural gas BTU side of things, just focusing on megawatts, if we want to get from 1% to 6%, that means we have to produce about 500 megawatt hours per day. So our current system, as I said, we've got the sewerage district and the Marshall Dam. We're doing about 6.5 megawatt hours. If that's functioning 12 hours per day, that's almost 80 megawatt hours per day. So we would really need to multiply that by 6 to get to that 497 megawatt hours to reach the 6%. I hope that math was simple enough, but yeah. So there are big benefits to dams, and we're going to go into each 4 of these. So, first of all, climate. We have areas that are very prone to flooding, landslides, and dams can be used, if installed correctly, to mitigate stream flow. And they can also be used as diversion areas and like holding areas for flood-prone areas. This protects residential, commercial, and other critical infrastructure. We would also be building on a tradition here, so there are a lot of lessons learned. It's not just the Tennessee Valley Authority with its almost 30 hydroelectric dams, and it's also got 1 pump storage, but Duke Energy Progress, as Jansel was saying, has about 30 hydroelectric stations as well, across North and South Carolina. So we have a lot to learn from all of these energy entities, and also the United States as a whole is a huge hydropower producer. We are the fourth largest producer of hydroelectric power as of 2008. I should probably update those statistics, but that's the most recent I was getting. So it also reduces the transmission problem. We are having to transmit electricity all across the county. Duke Energy Progress has 75,000 miles of distribution lines, and 6,000 miles of transmission lines. With dams speckled all across the county, the sources would be closer to the end users, and if cables, transmission lines snapped and went down, you would have more local solutions and less interruptions. Also, we've got two main power sources. In this top map, the red circles I have are the Lake Julian natural gas in the bottom center and the Canton coal plant over on the left side. And that's where we're getting most of our energy. So if those places get interrupted, we're in trouble. And that comes with high precipitation events, winds, ice storms, falling trees. Any of those can interrupt. Also, hydropower can represent a new type of tourism. This is clean energy tourism, and it's not crazy, it's not fictional, it actually exists. These pictures tell stories better than I can. Buncombe County relies heavily on tourism. It's billions of dollars a year and supports tens of thousands of jobs. So we could dovetail clean energy with other types of tourism like geo, bicycle, cultural, and adventure tourism. Here's an example of one group that is highly visited and frequented, and they have a small stream-powered hydro plant, Earth Haven, out in Black Mountain. There are small challenges. Obviously, they're big challenges, but we're going to go through these. So the protecting wildlife, I think, is the biggest. We've got some very unique wildlife in this area that fulfills critical ecosystem functions, basically providing us goods and services we need to survive, such as these filtering mussels, which are in and out of endangerment. The hellbender salamander is sort of our canary in the coal mine. If our rivers are unhealthy, those salamanders are unhealthy, and that tells us a lot. A lot of Duke Energy and even the Tennessee Valley Authority are planning on retiring dams. So in the case of Buncombe County, 99% of our hydropower will be phased out by 2030. So the conclusion, sextupling our county's hydropower to about 500 megawatt hours per day is very doable, but we have to build facilities in places that make sense, like near ugly highway overpasses that aren't going to interrupt our lives and our tourism. It has to incorporate ecological assessments. We cannot do this without that, seeing how that's going to affect our animals. And as we talked about with Jansel, we can use different techniques, not just doing enormous bunker-like dams. We can use diversion, microhydro, pump storage by using our water tanks and our existing reservoirs, which are holding a lot of energy, and flow through to control flooding. There are a lot of local universities we can work with, and I think we should be moving from this, with these two power stations, to something more like this. The current hydro's in the green, and the pink hydro is the proposed hydro. So anyways, for the discussion, this really comes down to our relationship with our energy service provider, which for most of us, if not all of us, is going to be Duke. What I want to hear from you guys is, what is your relationship with Duke? Do you just pay them money? Have they ever come out to repair utility lines by your house, or even work on or proximate to your house? And if you're with Duke, is your energy affordable and reliable? Would you consider that it is? That's the mandate they're trying to fulfill. So again, I'd just like to hear from you all. What is your utility relationship? I'm going to close that. There. Sorry, that's it. And if no one has any comments on that, I would be interested to hear, has anyone ever protested or gone out to dispute one of Duke's energy decisions?
Well, I think you know that I've protested Duke a lot. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think Duke has a lot of issues, and they're pretty bad company overall. Pretty bad actor in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of micro hydro, my question for you is, do you find any information like how many buildings or how many dams kind of similar to the Earth Haven Dam do you think would be like potentially built in Western North Carolina? Like could be like
Mm-hmm.
service a significant amount of our energy needs with this micro hydro?
Great question, Beatrice. So as we were talking about with Jansel, the microhydro generally goes up to 100 kilowatts. And these dams that I'm considering that could get the job done, you might consider medium hydro, so they might be in the single-digit megawatts. So like the Metropolitan Sewerage District Dam, the Marshall Dam, these things are around, or just under 5 megawatts. And if you went with a combination of those dams, you would really only need to add 12 more, like that map. I don't know if you can see the map I was showing you, but 12 more dams like that, or turbine units like that you could add to existing dams or areas that have that dam infrastructure. The inspiration for this was I recently went to South Bend, where they are redoing a public park. It's called Sites Park, and it's right downtown. It's going to be 2.5 megawatts. They are adding no new big infrastructure. They're just diverting the water under the park, passing it through turbines, and that's at a cost of $4 million, which is 1/18 the cost of our River Arts District transportation initiative. So we could do a lot.
Andrew, with regards to the 99% being phased out,
Yeah.
What did you find about how they're going to go about that, their strategies? I mean, that's probably a giant question, but is there any nuggets from that as far as, how they're going to go about that?
I really just skimmed Duke Energy Progress's reports. These are pretty long reports, and I was just trying to gather information on what exists. My impression is that they would just block it up. Tearing down the infrastructure and having to do riparian repair is incredibly expensive. So my hunch is that they're going to leave the concrete and the cement in place and just basically put an emergency brake on the moving parts. Kevin, I don't know, what you know about that.
I don't know about that I don't know about that specifically, but that was not what Duke did in Dillsboro. They actually removed the dam and did the riparian
Wow.
rehabilitation on the Tuckasegee River
Awesome.
there at Dillsboro.
Great. Good for them for once. No, I'm kidding.
Andrew, I have a relationship with Duke Energy in many ways, but and I think it's mixed like most people, but I won't dwell on that. But I think they put a meter on my house so that I could use my solar photovoltaic, and they have fixed down lines and so many other things, and I do think for me and for my I guess my usage and my income level, it seems fair and affordable, but I still think they have a long way to go to move towards what I want for other reasons beyond the cost and the reliability. But anyway, I want to highlight a point that you made and just get some clarification about the tourism related to clean energy tourism. And you said something about tens of thousands of jobs. Was that an accurate number? And then what would you estimate for for the region here, and what would it look like?
Can you still see my slides?
Yes, we see
Okay, cool.
Simpson.
No,
No, oh, that's Kevin.
no, that's my slide.
Oops. All right. I'm sorry for taking them down if I did. But so I got this from, I got some numbers from Explore Asheville, and they basically say in 2017, Buncombe County attracted 11 million visitors, including 4 million overnight guests. Visitors spent $2 billion, generating $3 billion in economic impact and supporting 27,000 jobs. And this was reported by the research firm Tourism Economics. It's the third largest employer in our area. So that's a little bit about tourism in Buncombe County.
That's interesting. Thanks. I guess, yeah, I see some connections there. It's an interesting idea. Thought.
Yeah, and that's interesting hearing about your relationship with Duke Energy. I'm wondering, one question I had up in the discussion session was, would you be willing to pay 5% more to accomplish an initiative like sextupling of hydropower, or some other renewable energies? Would you be willing to pay 5–10% more a month, Keith?
Me personally, I would, depending on how that played out and what the impacts were. So, you know, I think that's a bigger question than yes or no. And I do think there's a justice issue, of course, around it. I would be willing to pay that for sure, if it was going to be a clean renewable energy. But I'm not sure if it makes sense for everyone to pay what I would pay.
Yeah. Good point.
There's an interesting set of relationships that we haven't talked much about, that one of which is tourism, that have a base in surface area of water. Now, that's not absolute with respect to tourism, but surface area can be related to that to some degree. And on the downside, surface area also is the source or the determinant of evaporative loss. And evaporative loss in big hydroelectric projects is enormous. And it's so big that in a project the size, say, of Santee Cooper in South Carolina, it's bound to have an effect on climate. Did any of you look into that at all? And did any of you look into whether there is some relationship between surface area and total volume of impoundments that determines efficiency in a make or break way, and relates it to topography?
That's a great question, Wade. I didn't look into the evaporative issue, but one thing that I was pushing for in my presentation was using the infrastructure that's already there, relying on water tanks, which we've got dozens of in the area, and big bodies like North Fork Reservoir. So I didn't look into that, but.
So Wade, you're saying the evaporative loss of all these large, in consideration of the surface area of all these reservoirs is having a significant, well, it makes sense. I hadn't thought of it that way, but a significant impact in terms of the big climate, you know, the shift in climate.
Yeah,
temperature. That's pretty.
I haven't seen anything that quantifies that, but it has to be a fact from the figures that I've seen on the amount of water you lose.
That's pretty.
Yeah, I think in my research,
profound.
it mentioned that as part of the effects of the climate change on when I was doing my research on dam removal, but it never quantified what that might look like. It just said, you know, because we know the effects of climate change have to do with evapotranspiration as well, that can cause variances in the water levels.
I mean, if we were really dealing with water scarcity like California and had to do, you know, those black balls on the surface of the water, I mean, that would introduce a whole new issue of, you know, pollution by plastic and cutting off that area to tourism because people aren't going to be going to see a bunch of black balls. So I'm just saying, Wade, the issue that you bring up is a huge one and could be very expensive. So good consideration.
Okay, these have all been fascinating. All of you have done a great job. So give yourself a round of applause.